Hello there, and a very good afternoon. Welcome once again to one of our question and answer sessions with Professor Michael Clarke. Those eagle-eyed of you will see that we're just calling this one a live question and answer session. We're not tagging it directly Ukraine or Iran because we're going to talk about both. Because both wars merit us talking about in quite some detail. It would seem as if at this stage, what are we, the 17th of June, the US-Israel-Iran war seems to be coming to something of an end. Is that fair to say, Michael, do you think?
We're coming to a juncture.
Coming to a juncture.
I think it'll be a very messy end, and I don't think this is the end of the problem or the end of fighting, but this is a juncture which may help to relieve some of the economic pressures that it's created,
Yeah, and we'll also have a focus this week on the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which many would hope will be back on the agenda of at least the Americans now because of the fact if they do manage to find peace with the Iranians in the Middle East. So thank you again for your questions, as always. And as always, if anything occurs to you as we're going along, submit the questions in the chat or in our social channels and we'll try and get them put to Michael. We're also going to talk about what happened in the Channel. Yesterday. Okay. This yacht that seemed to come under, well, certainly warning shots were fired near it. So the first question here, Michael, is from Max. And the question from Max is, was the Channel incident a test for the UK? Anyone who's missed this, of course, a pleasure yacht was passing through the Channel. A Russian warship was nearby, about 500 meters. There were sort of alarms sounded and then warning shots fired by small arms. Was it a test, Max asks?
No, it was a something and nothing incident, I think. But it's not unimportant. It's a one-off thing. I think the Russians panicked on the Grigorovich, which is the frigate, because there's lots of contradictory elements to this story, and I can't reconcile them all. But what I think has happened is that the Grigorovich was in that part of just off the Isle of Wight because it was checking up on the Sutherland and the Ledbury, who had been involved in seizing the what was it called?
Soslu, isn't it?
The name always keeps escaping me.
Hold on a second, I'm going to find it right here.
The Smerios.
Smerios, no?
That's right. It was Smerios.
Anyway, let's carry on.
Which was the illegal oil tanker carrying sanctioned oil on Sunday, which was taken into Weymouth. And the HMS Sutherland and Ledbury were still around in that area at the time. Now, I think the Grigorovich has left its usual place, which is off the Suffolk coast, where it escorts Russian ships back and forth through the Channel. And I think it had gone round and found itself off the Isle of Wight. And then it seems to have had a steering problem, or it couldn't control itself properly. That's what the Russians said. And I think that they probably panicked a bit. And when this sailing boat got within 500 yards, not on a collision course, I think somebody panicked. They didn't go through all the protocols. I'm not convinced that they tried to reach them on the radio, because if they did, it would have been on Channel 16, which is monitored by the Coast Guard. So there'll be some Coast Guard chatter, either the British Coast Guards or the French Coast Guards or both. I don't believe they fired flares, as they say they did, because if they had, other people would have seen them. It's a very crowded shipping lane. Nobody else has reported them. I do believe that they sounded their klaxon a couple of times, or 5 times on 2 groups of 5, because the yacht heard them, and then somebody on the ship started firing rifle rounds, presumably into the air as a warning shot, and then the people on the yacht, the couple, as it were, decided just to leave and get out of the way. But I mean, 500 metres for a sailing boat is not very close.
Okay.
The Royal Navy says they ask sailing boats to stay 250 metres away from warships. They regard that as safe. So, the couple wouldn't have thought they were getting close. They might have been curious. Oh, look, there's a Russian frigate over there. And the frigate, I think, probably panicked. So it's an event, but it shows the recklessness of the Russians and the fact that they don't follow protocols. And if they were drifting, if they had a steering problem, the first thing they should have done was contact the Coast Guard to tell them. And then the Coast Guard would have put out a warning to all ships in the area that we've got a Russian frigate drifting off the Isle of Wight. Be careful.
And have the Russians clarified at this stage as to exactly what the issue was with this?
No, they've said it was a steering problem. Right. And they've said that they went through all the protocols, and I don't believe they did. Because
so where's the ship now?
Sorry?
Where is the Smertos now? Sorry, not the Smertos. Where's this frigate now?
The Grigorovich.
Yeah.
As far as I know, it's still in the area. I mean, whether it's going around in circles or drifting, we don't know. I haven't had a chance to check it up this morning, to be honest. It won't be far away for sure. So it's somewhere in that part of the channel between the Isle of Wight and Normandy, and Cherbourg.
So Aaron King asks, why are Russian vessels allowed into the channel in the first place?
Oh, it's an international waterway. I mean, the distance between the Isle of Wight and Cherbourg is 60 miles. And that was the distance of the D-Day invasion. That had to cross 60 miles of channel in 1944, in June 1944. So the national limits are 12 miles usually. Well, genuinely, the territorial limits are 12 miles, and the strict limit is 3 miles, which is sovereign territory. So, yeah, I mean, they move through the channel the way anything else is allowed to move through the channel. So, the English Channel is not Britain's waterway or France's waterway, just like the Strait of Hormuz. It's an international, it may be narrow, it's the same width as the Strait of Hormuz, 21 miles, 22 miles, but it's an international waterway, and we have no right to stop vessels going through the channel if they're innocent passage.
Yeah.
We only have a right to stop them, as in the case of the Smirtos, if they're not innocent passage.
And we talked weeks ago, maybe months ago now, about the possibility of Royal Marines, the US, the UK armed forces doing this. They've now finally done it and taken a ship. Do you think this is the first of many, or is that just sort of a
Good question.
warning?
We don't know, because the first one is relatively easy to do. It would have taken the Russian or the captain by surprise, certainly. Indian, wasn't he?
He's
Pant, his name was, yeah.
Absolutely.
And that would have taken them by surprise. So it was straightforward. The Marines land on the deck. They had HMS Sutherland, a Type 23 frigate, thankfully, just come out of refit, fastest of the class of frigates. So we had the Sutherland there, and the Ledbury, which is just a mine countermeasure vessel. I mean, couldn't really add very much in combat terms, but it was a presence. So we had the Sutherland and the Ledbury, and it was straightforward, and it worked very easily. Easy to do the first time. If we do it a second or third or fourth time, then the Russians almost certainly will elevate the danger of the situation.
Like
they'll put armed men on board. They've got some security men on board some of these ships. Some of them are armed, some of them are not. But if they've got armed men on board, then the chances are there could be a firefight between Marines and armed men. And if they've got a frigate standing off, there's always a danger of a shooting incident. Now, the way you do that safely is, as I keep saying, you've got to overmatch them at the point of contact. So if they've got, let's say, the Grigorovich and some armed men on board, we've got to have 2 frigates in the area, or a frigate and a Type 45 destroyer, and the Marines, and something else, and lots of aircraft around. We've got to overmatch them at the point of contact, so that the message is, don't even think about it. Don't try and resist. This is a straightforward operation. It's the old adage, if you want to do something peacefully, you normally need quite a lot of force to ensure that you do it peacefully. And that's the limiting factor for us. To do it on our own, as a British nation, we haven't got the ships.
No.
If we do it with our allies, that's different. We can put the ships together, and that's what I suspect will happen. But the big question is a very good question. Will there be a second and a third? There ought to be, in my view, but it gets harder and a bit more dangerous as you do the second, third, and fourth one, which is why it'll be less dangerous if we do it with our allies.
And they will continue to, I guess, to try and transit through the channel to continue to test this with those shadow.
Probably. I mean, on Sunday, there were at least 5 other Russian Shadow Fleet tankers on their way into the channel, into the northern approaches, and they turned round.
Interesting. And went around the long way.
And go around the long way. And if they go around the long way, that's 500 miles extra, which adds to costs. But it also puts some of these tankers, many of which are rust buckets, so they're not very stable, it puts them into the wild Atlantic, which is harder for them. So the owners will worry about that.
Right. So deal with the rough seas.
Exactly, rougher, certainly. Yeah. It's much quicker and from their point of view, safer in seafaring terms to come through the channel. So if they feel that they can't do that, it's too dangerous to do that, then they have to take wide detours. So it's a way of making the Shadow Fleet more difficult. And if we seize ships now and again, you don't have to seize all of them. I mean, there's hundreds of these damn things. But if you seize some of them, now and again or at regular intervals, the owners will think twice about letting their ships be used for Shadow Fleet purposes.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that before when it was first announced by John Healey.
Back in March.
As well as was Defence Secretary at the time.
Yeah, and since we announced it, over 200 transits have taken place. involving more than 150 ships.
And sometimes we have seen them going.
We've seen them going past.
And they haven't.
So the Russians, not surprisingly, believe that we didn't mean what we said.
Since I haven't seen you for a couple of weeks, and since in the time that we last spoke, we lost a defence secretary and a defence minister, and this defence investment plan has still not properly been pushed. Big intake of breath, Michael. How much does that kind of play into these decisions that have been made in terms of trying to seize these Russian ships?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the government said, look, there is no connection between the seizure on Sunday and the fact that we had the resignations of Healy on, was it Thursday and Friday last week, now Cairns. And maybe there wasn't, because the point they make is, look, it takes a lot of planning to seize this ship. It wasn't a quick decision. Yep. Needed to put a lot of things in place, a lot of intelligence required to make sure we were doing it in the right sort of way. And that's plausible. But I think they're making these planning assumptions all the time about, they're probably looking at ships number 3, 4 and 5 that they might go for if they come through the channel. They're probably doing that now. The fact that they decided to do it on Sunday, in light of all the problems of defence last week, in light of the G7 summit coming up yesterday and today, it looks quite convenient. So I wouldn't say it was created deliberately for it, but it is a convenient distraction from the problems of defence when finally we were able, or felt able, to intercept one of the ships. But again, it wasn't ideal. I mean, It was one good Type 23 frigate and one mine countermeasure vessel.
Well, as you were saying, you want to be able to overmatch them massively in the future. Yeah. And where's HMS Dragon? That's down in...
Dragon's down in the Gulf.
In the Gulf,
and
right?
the Duncan is up with the carrier on this Northern Atlantic exercise. And that's it. We've only got 2 Type 45s available out of the 6. The other 4 are in refit. We've got, I think the Sutherland is maybe 3 of the Type 23s available. It may be that we've lost one of the other ones. We had the Richmond and the Somerset available. One of those might now have gone in for refit. But anyway, the Sutherland's just come out, so it's in good shape. It's the fastest of our Type 23s, as it happens. It's a good ship, very good ship. But we just don't have enough of these things.
There's not enough ships.
Don't have enough of them, no.
Okay, so remains to be seen, doesn't it? When the next test comes and they next feel able to, whether or not they will stick to their word and continue to try and see.
They might, and we'll see what the Russians do. We'll see if they keep pushing their vessels down the channel to challenge the idea.
Well, go on. A thought on the legality then. As you say, it's an international waterway. They're allowed to transit through it. But because they're piloting sanctioned vessels that have been then deemed illegal under international law.
That's right. It's not innocent passage.
Right.
So it's illegal under international law insofar as the sanctions regime is international, although it's not. I mean, in the case of Russian oil, I don't think it's backed up by a UN Security Council resolution.
Well,
I don't think so.
It, wouldn't they, in the Security Council?
But it's backed up by a lot of other. You're absolutely right. It couldn't be a UNSCR, but it's backed up by a lot of other international agreements and statutes. But the other thing about it is that it's also a matter of domestic law. And interestingly, when the Marines landed on the Smertos, thank you. It keeps going out of my head.
In our heads now, forever.
When the Marines landed on the Smertos, they also took NCA, National Crime Agency,
yes.
because the military can't arrest anybody. They can hold them at gunpoint. You can't arrest them. Only law enforcement officers can arrest them. So they had to have some policemen on board.
Interesting.
People's Police Authority, which is National Crime Agency, because it's domestic law as well, as far as we're concerned.
Interesting. Okay, so there's the legality.
And they arrested the captain.
They did. Anjay Pantus, 38, who has appeared in court already. All right, let's move on to a question here from Grant and about Ukraine. How difficult would it be for Ukraine to take back and hold Crimea? And if they succeeded, would it give them a major strategic advantage, or would it mostly provoke more extreme retaliation from Russia?
Okay, well, working backwards, there's 3 points there.
Yeah.
One is the Russians are already doing their worst, so they wouldn't do any more to Ukraine if Ukraine were able to seize Crimea. So firstly, I wouldn't worry about the Russian reaction. If they could do more damage, they would. Second point is that, no, I don't think the working backwards, it would be a huge strategic advantage to be able to grab Crimea back. But first point, no, they can't. They won't be able to do it. Of all of the areas of Ukraine that have been lost to the Russians, Crimea is the one that would be the most difficult to get back.
Of course, it was taken in 2014.
2014, yeah, exactly, when the Donbass crisis, they took Crimea, and then a couple of months later they took about a third of the Donbass. And that's the way it was until 2022.
The little green men, wasn't it?
Very unlikely that the Ukrainians will get Crimea back. But the strategic point still holds. If they can make Crimea, they don't have to capture it or recapture it. They have to make it unviable for the Russians. So and this is what the Ukrainians tried to do in 2023 when they, that big offensive with all the Western equipment, which just ran out of steam after a couple of months. What they were trying to do was to push south from Orikhiv to get close enough to Ukraine, to Crimea rather, to bombard it with artillery, to bombard the military installations in Crimea, to make it strategically unsafe for the Russians to use. And now they figure that with what's happening on the battlefield, with the use of their drones, they're close to being able to create that pressure. They haven't done it yet, but they've made some inroads into Crimea, and they've certainly taken down a lot of the air defense in Crimea. And they figure that without actually having to get all their armored forces close enough, they could do it with now their medium and long-range drones. And if they can make Crimea unviable for the Russian population to live there, I mean, 800,000 Russians, essentially most of them moved into Crimea as colonizers. And if it makes their life very difficult and that they don't want to stay, and if they can stop Crimea being used as a major military hub, which it is, I mean, it dominates the Russian military operations in southern Ukraine. So that would be a big strategic advantage. So Ukraine doesn't have to capture Crimea, but if it can make it unviable, then it gives it a huge strategic advantage in any ceasefire talks that might take place, let's say, end of this year or next year. That would be a really powerful card which the Ukrainians could play.
Give us an overview of where you think the Ukrainians are currently in terms of fending off the Russian invasion. It's been a couple of weeks since we talked, and a couple of weeks since you and I have thought about this.
Well, the Russians are not going forward on the battlefield. They started their spring offensive a couple of months ago, and it's making no progress at all. They've tried to go north from Pokrovsk to take the rest of the Donbass, and of course, they want to take the famous fortress cities. So north to south, Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, Druzhkivka, and Kostiantynivka. They haven't taken any of those four. They're not close. Well, they're closer in Kostiantynivka, but they still can't. And they're making no progress. Meanwhile, the Ukrainians are winning back more territory than the Russians have managed to take. And more than that, what the Ukrainians have done is that they're using their drones, particularly these Firepoint drones. Firepoint, this terrific company. And the Firepoint 1 is long range. The Firepoint 2 is shorter range, 20 to 200 kilometers, but it's got quite much bigger warhead. And they've also got these drones called the Hornet, which are polystyrene, little polystyrene model aircraft. And they've got a small charge on them, but they're directed by AI. So they can chase vehicles down the road. They can chase people into dugouts, as the quadcopters do. Yeah. And so the Ukrainians have been able not just to use their drones on the battlefront, but to use them against Russian logistics. So they've stopped Russian logistics getting forward to the battlefront, and they've really affected their supply lines to Crimea. And so there's one particular road called the R280, that's the Russian number for it, and it goes from Rostov-on-Don, inside Russia, to Dzankoy in Crimea, which is the main connecting city in Crimea that connects Crimea to the rest of Ukraine, Russian-occupied Ukraine at the moment. And that road, about 390 miles, I think it is, almost 400 miles. And that road is become, I call it, it's like a thunder run for the Russians.
You can't pass through without being...
Not easily. They're having to take real risks by sending stuff down the road. So they're cramping all of the supplies going into Crimea. They're cramping logistics supplies going forward to the front line. And they're holding the Russians on the front line very efficiently. This is not going to win the war for Ukraine, as we often say. They won't win the war through this, but neither will the Russians. Yeah. And it reflects something else. I mean, some of the other work I've been doing for other things on sixth-generation warfare, and you look at the effect of drones. We talk about drones in Ukraine and drones in Iran and in Lebanon. The drone warfare in Africa is phenomenal. The number of drones being used, and the effect of drones is to prolong war. Right. They prolong these conflicts because they allow the weaker side to hold the stronger side. Yep. If they've got enough drones, a stronger side can't break through a sort of drone wall.
Because eventually you'll have to send some kind of infantry through to hold position.
Yeah.
Until the drones are able to do it.
Exactly.
Until the drones can go and hold position.
So drones have this effect of prolonging conflict. And we've got to think through the implications of that. Now, in Ukraine, because the territory in Ukraine, it's ideal for drone warfare in a way. It wouldn't necessarily be the same if we're talking about war somewhere else. But at the moment, there's no obvious way of breaking through the sort of drone wall, the kill zone, which exists either side of the lines to 30, 40 kilometres. So, and the schemes I've seen for breaking through are just more drones.
Really?
You find out you overwhelm the drone wall, and then you send armour through the gap. It sounds like First World War.
Right.
Send the cavalry through the gap to encircle the enemy. Oh well, good luck with that.
But armoured drones, maybe armoured ground.
Something like that. Yeah, something. I mean, it doesn't sound very convincing to me. But there's a big sort of tactical discussion going on. Drones have been so dramatic, not just in Ukraine but in African conflict.
Yeah.
That this idea that they...
It was quite effectively in Sudan, weren't they?
Exactly, in Sudan, in Ethiopia, and certainly in some of the issues that are going on further south and in the Sahel. They're astonishing. And they're being used by the jihadists and by separatists. It's amazing what they can achieve if they can get hold of enough of them, if they're funded well enough to get hold of enough just quadcopters. They have an amazing effect. So we're thinking all of that through. At the moment, the Ukrainians are the beneficiaries of that, and it means the Russians can't get what they want. And in a way, I think the Ukrainian strategy now is to show that they can hold on and wait for bigger strategic changes in Russia, that the Russian economy is stuttering, there's discontent in Russia. They don't know where that's going to go, but they now know that they can cause Russia some real problems just by holding on and hurting Russia with attacks on their refineries. I mean, the petrol shortage is everywhere in Russia at the moment.
Yeah. Final question here on the Ukraine topic. It's coming from Sue, not Sue sitting over there, our director, but Sue, who's been writing online, who kind of wonders what the option is then for Putin. With all that you've laid out about how Ukraine are holding and taking back some position, what military options does Putin still have?
Not that many. And what he's done, I mean, what the Russians have done, have shifted to this aerial bombardment, sort of day and night now, of Ukrainian cities because
to try and reduce morale.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do. I mean, strategically bomb them into submission. And there are no cases in modern history where that works. Certainly not on its own. It can contribute to a breakdown in morale, but in itself, there's no good cases where it works. But that seems to be what the Russians are doing, and partly they're doing it because they can. They can now overwhelm Ukrainian air defences. And if you look at the Ukrainians are still bringing down about 90% of all the drones that are sent against them, but they're only bringing down about 50, 55, 60% of the missiles.
Ballistic missiles, yeah.
And when the missiles get through, they cause an enormous amount of damage. So that's the problem the Ukrainians have got, at least for this year. Next year, they may well have this Freya system built on Firepoint again. Yep. The FP7 looks like a thing that is as good as the Patriot in terms of its speed and its altitude, and it's 1/5 the cost. If they can get the system ready, they've got the missile, but if they can systematise it with all the radars and the in particular the collision radar, they use it. What it does, it works on radar for most of the flight, and then it uses heat seeking for the last bit, which is a bit less reliable than using a better radar for the last bit. And they're sourcing components from the Europeans, and they're looking round. I mean, a lot of European countries are helping them because this may turn out to be a European Patriot. Right. Nobody these days should try and buy Patriot because you won't get them.
No, well, they've used more.
No, you won't get them. I mean, the Americans won't sell them. Just as an aside, Lockheed Martin, who make them, they said in Germany they produce about I think it's 280 Patriots a year. Sorry, no, it's not like it's 2 a day. So it's 700 Patriots a year, and they're going to treble their production of Patriots to about 2,000 and something a year, treble the 700 odd, to 2,000 a year, and it's going to take them 7 years to reach that target.
Wow.
7 years. So that means that if we in Britain say, well, let's buy Patriot missiles, we're not going to get them for a long, long time. So forget
Back
it.
of the queue.
And it's American, which means that it may be unreliable in the sense that they might pull the rug from under you after you've ordered them and so on. The government might, not Lockheed Martin. So forget Patriot. That's yesterday's technology. The thing is that if the Freya system works based on the FP7, then the whole of Europe might be able to afford a decent air defence system. If it works as well as it might do, And that might be available by at the end of next year or the beginning of 2028. That will be something.
Well, you've given me my next rabbit hole to fall down. I'm going to do all the reading I can around the Freya system. I know that there is there an Italian produced one, but I think it must be by Leonardo, that's kind of similar.
French-Italian, yeah. It's called the SAMPT, SAMP-T, SAMP-T, and then there's a SAMP-T NG version, which is the new one, which will also be very good.
Yeah.
And that also will be as good as Patriot, but it might not be as cheap as the Ukrainian FP7, probably won't be. We don't know. I mean, we've got to be cautious about this, and we shouldn't just assume that because Ukraine is good at these things, it will be good at producing a whole system. But because Leonardo, the Italian company, Thales, the French company, BAE, the British company, they're all trying to help. And so German system, not so much Rheinmetall, but some of the other German companies, or I can't think of who they are now.
Is it KNDS? That's the other one?
That's right, yeah. And MBDA is another one. They're all collaborate or interested in collaborative projects to try to create a European air defence system which is good enough against ballistic missiles, which wasn't a problem 20 years ago because ballistic missiles then were just nuclear and they would be saved for a major world war. Now ballistic missiles are sort of 10 a penny and they're used in conflicts around the world. So suddenly we've got to take seriously the idea of conventionally armed ballistic missiles on our homelands. So we need an air defence system, and it won't be Patriot.
But this is exactly part of, I mean, kind of what Donald Trump was saying from years ago during his first time, that Europeans had to start looking after themselves, and what we have talked about for many, many times since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, that this is the European military-industrial complex finally getting themselves potentially into a position where they can all work together.
And they are,
I suppose it helps as well that it's,
it does,
a huge block of 27, 26
It is, but it's patchy. It's very patchy. It's not uniform, sadly. And of course, American companies now complain that they're being frozen out, and they say, "Well, what do you expect? Your government sort of pulls the rug from under us." I mean, look what happened with Anthropic.
I was going to say
AI.
They've just done it with AI just this week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which is stupid, absolutely stupid. No foreigners can work on it. Well, that means nobody can work on it because Anthropic uses foreigners all over their operations. Really, I mean, they'll have to reverse on that. But the fact that the government can make these quixotic decisions to bar you from a technology that you're all involved in, means that it can't be trusted. Yeah.
Let's move on to the Middle East now.
Right.
And we'll start with a question from Fairy D on the deal.
Who? Fairy who?
Fairy D.
Fairy D?
Fairy D.
Well, okay.
Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Fairy. Yeah.
Who is the real winner in the latest 60-day ceasefire proposal? I mean, I have an opinion, but I'll let you do yours first, Michael.
Oh, no, the winner is, well, the proposal as we now have it is undoubtedly Iran. Now, the proposal, this MOU, which is signed electronically last week, which the Americans still haven't released.
No.
But I've seen now 4 or 5 different versions of what is said to be the proposal. The Iranian news agency, Fars, put out about 3 times yesterday a version of the MOU. The Saudis put out another version last night, which was exactly the same. And this morning, the Israeli press and then Bloomberg, who are very reliable on these things, they put out versions which, again, are exactly the same.
Yeah.
So I've now read the proposal 3 times, and there is no difference to the one I read early yesterday morning to the one I read this morning. And if you look at those 14 points, page and a half, it's Iranian all the way through. If you read down that whole thing, it's not the idea that the Iranians are going to have to perform in order to get the benefits, as J.D. Vance has been saying. Say, we'll hold their feet to the fire. They won't get any of this unless they perform. It's the other way around. That the Iranians won't agree unless the Americans perform, unless the Americans do what it says. And I think the reason the Americans have not released this document is that they're trying to prepare the ground by talking it up before they release their version of it. And unless their version in some other way is very different to the version that's circulating, Donald Trump has already said this is fake news, this is not the version. Yes. Well, we'll see. Because if this is, who knows? But I mean, if this is the version that emerges, I think you'll have real trouble selling it, even to the Republicans. Because everyone will ask, what was the point of the war?
Yeah.
this, the MOU takes us back to where we were before the 28th of February, but in worse situation. That the Strait of Hormuz now will open and close, regularly. It seems to me.
Well, they've got a toll model that they've reduced their price massively to about 130,000. I've read places that shipping firms are like, well, we can probably deal with that.
We can do that. Yeah, exactly. They'll do it. Yeah, and although this is not in the MOU that I've read, the Iranians are on the edge of it, talking about a maritime service charge.
Excellent, like that.
For maritime services, which is a toll to you and me. And again, it's they're trying to exact a maritime service charge for going through an international waterway. They've got no right to do that. And I mean, again, the Gulf states will be extremely angry about that, because that's, even if the charge were moderate, I mean, the fact is it won't be moderate forever, and the Iranians could just keep putting it up and taking it down. But equally, I mean, the Iranians, you think about the Strait of Hormuz, they now know they could close the strait within 2 hours.
Yeah.
Because all they have to do is fire a couple of drones at the ships passing through, 130-odd ships a day. Even if the drones don't hit anything, the fact that they fire them will stop all movement.
Yeah.
Everybody will stop. And then point one of this MOU is that there will be a ceasefire which must include Lebanon. That's point one. So in a way, the Israelis are going to find that they are being held hostage to the Strait of Hormuz. So if the Israelis, in the view of the Iranians, break the ceasefire, they'll close the Strait of Hormuz. Yeah. Then maybe they'll open it again. The Israelis break the ceasefire, they'll close it again. I mean, I think what we're going to see is a Strait of Hormuz which opens and closes and opens and closes, according to what happens in Lebanon. That's my guess.
Well, it's interesting because a couple of weeks ago, when this was sort of being mooted by Trump and we weren't sure if they were going to get anywhere close to it, the fact that fighting had stopped in Lebanon was part of that original agreement. And I remember asking you, do you think the Iranians would come in on the side of Hezbollah? And it proven that they would. About 10 or so days ago, the Israelis hit Hezbollah and the Iranians fired directly on Israel.
They did. And there's a good account in the Financial Times today. They've put together all of the comings and goings of the diplomacy over the last 3 weeks, in which the Pakistanis have played a good role, but the Qataris, my friends the Qataris, have played a very, very good role at America's request, and they've done all the heavy lifting. I mean, whereas Munir in Pakistan has played a good role in terms of he gets on with Trump and Trump likes him, the Qataris have gone tirelessly back and forth. And every time they thought they were on the verge of agreement, something would happen in Beirut, in Lebanon, or something would happen in the Gulf with an incident where Iran and America would exchange fire in some way. And about 4 times it was on the verge of collapse, and they just brought it through last weekend. And here we are. We've got agreement in principle to a signing on tomorrow or Friday
I think so.
of this MOU. But again, the MOU is not a deal. It's just the decision to discuss a deal. And that was the phrase, not my phrase, the phrase of Robert Wilkie, who is an American diplomat. And he said, this deal is actually a deal to discuss a deal. And so we're back to where we were before the 28th of February.
I mean, you've kind of touched on it, but Bob wants to know, we don't know for certain, but could Netanyahu wreck Trump's deal before Friday?
Yes, he could. If they say there were an attack on Beirut, then the Iranians might say, well, the MOU doesn't apply then, because item 1 is ceasefire, including Lebanon. So if there's no ceasefire in Lebanon, then the rest of the deal falls. They could say that. I think if that were the case, the Americans would go berserk, I think. I mean, Trump would go berserk, and I don't think Netanyahu, as much as he is under real pressure domestically, and as much as the Iranians hate this deal, as they think they see it, and that's why I think the Israeli press have published it today, their version of it, which I think is going to be the version that we all look at when the Americans release it. The Israelis are conducting a real campaign against it, saying it's a terrible deal. The Israeli public hates it, the government hates it, Netanyahu hates it. And he's in a really difficult position now, Netanyahu, because he was close to Trump. It was an Israeli-American attack on Iran to change the nature of the Iranian government, to deal with Iran once and for all. It's gone very wrong in that respect, even though the Iranian people have paid dearly for it. And Netanyahu is now in a very difficult position. Would he wreck the deal between now and the weekend? I doubt it. Will he wreck the deal ultimately? I think that's quite likely.
I mean, I've been thinking...
Or will he undermine the deal with attacks?
Yeah.
I think that's quite likely.
I've been thinking about this over the past few days, and I think politically for him, he has to show his displeasure with the deal, and right up to the very, very line of doing everything possible to show how angry he is, and that may include some low-level strikes. But I would be massively surprised if he decided to try and blow the deal up entirely with a big strike on Beirut. For
this side of the weekend,
this side of the weekend, for the very fact that I think is quite clear to everyone that the Israelis could not fight Iran without the Americans.
No.
And I think Donald Trump, I mean, the language that was used in the past couple of weeks about Benjamin Netanyahu was extraordinary.
It was. And yesterday, I don't know if you caught up with it because you were away, weren't you?
I was off, yeah.
Yeah. Well, but yesterday, President Trump was saying at the G7 summit, I mean, in one of his press conferences where he was just riffing with the press as he does, and he was saying he was very critical of Israeli bombing policy.
Yeah, about knocking down a
exactly. You say, you're taking down a whole apartment block because you're going after one person. You know, most of those people, or all the other people, are not Hezbollah.
That is a complete turn from where he was rhetorically before.
So undoubtedly, I mean, I think Trump would go ballistic if there was an attack on Beirut this side of the weekend. But ultimately, when this deal is formally signed and the Americans have to publish it and take all the criticism, then I suspect it will break down in Lebanon over the next weeks.
Interesting. Just to stay with the Israelis for a moment, because there are elections coming there, aren't there?
By end of October. A date to be determined.
Yeah.
Government gets that choice, but they have to have it, I think, by the end of October. Yeah.
Some quite strong opposition parties. Naftali Bennett, Benny Gantz is running as
well.
And
Yair Lapid. Yair Lapid and Naftali Bennett have united together. And those are the two. I mean, Bennett, of course, was Prime Minister. Yair Lapid, very interesting. He's not. I mean, he's ambitious, but not for himself. He comes over as this kind of superstar who is believable because he's saying that if somebody else can be Prime Minister, I will support them. I don't have to be Prime Minister.
Yeah,
he's a very attractive character. I mean, both him and Naftali Bennett are right wing by our sort of European standards, but nevertheless they have a very good chance of unseating Netanyahu and getting in the Knesset. I mean, getting a convincing majority. And then Benny Gantz as well is a major figure.
Yeah. And again, I suppose that they will all be against this deal, but how much are people going to want to see war continue on? I mean, I don't know how many people are still displaced from the north of Israel, but they need to try and resolve this.
I mean, if Netanyahu is removed, if he's removed in October, and I think it's quite likely now, it looks like it, because this is where Netanyahu is now is hugely humiliating for him. I mean, he's walked Israel and America into a war that has clearly been lost politically. The Americans have really lost. Now, I go back to what I said before. The Americans lost this war on the 7th of April, which was the time when they wound themselves up to destroying Iranian society completely, and then got frightened by what they were threatening. Yeah. And from then on, the military instrument can't deliver anymore. And so, militarily, the Americans lost this war on the 7th of April, and they've been trying to make the most of a losing position ever since. So we are where we are now. For Israel, that's hugely humiliating for Netanyahu, because this was going to be the war that would sort out Iran, that would reduce Iran, deal with Hezbollah. Hasn't done either of those things. Right. So I think he's quite likely to lose power. And then Naftali Bennett and Yair Lapid might well try to rethink Israeli security policy. I mean, both of them are imaginative enough to do that. And I think there's this sense that Netanyahu's policy of endless war, open-ended war, he talks about Israel being a Spartan state. I mean, most of the 10 million Israelis really don't want to live in a Spartan state. They want a Jewish homeland which is peaceful and secure, the way they remember it, but no more. And so I suspect that they will rethink security in some quite big ways.
Does that mean expanding the borders of Israel, as it seems to be, because they're holding lots of territory?
They are, yeah.
They're holding 70, 80% of Gaza, which may go further.
They're talking about 70% of Gaza, so they haven't got it yet. I mean, the Egyptians, Al-Sisi, only yesterday was saying it's very unacceptable that you should move across the ceasefire line and go from 50% to 70%. And he's come out strongly on that issue. I mean, the Israelis are holding a lot of other territory, and under Netanyahu, there's no question that the strategy is to create a greater Israel, with the West Bank, part of Lebanon, Golan Heights, Gaza again, get back into Gaza, and give themselves buffer zones in the area around. So make Israel much bigger. Don't care what happens to the Palestinians particularly. There won't ever be a two-state solution. That's the present policy. They never quite declare it in those terms, but believe me, that's what underlies it all.
Some within the government do.
Yeah. Now, if there's a new government after October, who knows? The rethinking might have to be very deep indeed, but it won't be an easy ride, that's for sure. But I think, as always in democratic politics, the urge to get rid of one very unpopular government is greater than the thinking that goes into what's going to come next.
After that. Question here from John Parry. Is it possible to calculate the cost of the US attacks on Iran? I've had a quick look sort of at a dollar amount, and there are various numbers here, but I suppose the costs...
113 billion, have you got that one?
Absolutely right.
All right, okay.
Absolutely right. But I suppose the cost of this can mean all sorts of things, sort of the moral costs, the sort of the cost of international law. There's all sorts of costs.
Cost on world trade, on everything. What's the 113?
So that's the Iran War Cost Tracker. They say that
at
the moment it's totaling about $113 billion.
Now, that, as I recall, that's what the Pentagon gave to a figure to Congress.
That's right, exactly. Yeah.
Recently, was it this week?
I believe. Let me look at the 16th of June. Yeah,
16th. Oh, yeah, okay,
yeah.
2 days ago. Yeah, I couldn't remember when I saw it first, but yeah, 113 billion.
Yeah.
Is the Pentagon's figure, which is likely to be a big underestimate even for the Pentagon's expenditure. But they have to report something to Congress. But I mean, if those are the direct costs, the indirect costs, even to the military, will be in terms of extra. I mean, all of the extra flying hours on the aircraft, so the aircraft will need more engines more frequently. I mean, the cost of Patriot replacement. You can work on that. But the cost of the usage of military equipment, which is always pretty expensive once you start using it up. And the replacement cost, that's much harder to calculate. And I bet that 113 billion will turn out to be a severe underestimate. The cost to Iran, unknowable. But the interesting figure here is that in the MOU that we were talking about, the figure of 300 billion is being touted as a reconstruction cost for economic reconstruction, and is a first instalment really, which sounds plausible. I mean, who's going to provide this 300 billion is a mystery.
Now, my understanding from the reading I've done is this is money that's held in banks around the world that is Iranian money, apparently, that was put under sanctions, so they weren't able to draw down on it. So it's being held in different.
Oh no, two different things, Kamali. No, there's $100 billion of $100 billion of frozen assets. And if they could be in banks around the world, exactly as you say, that could be drawn down. And then there's oil that can be on sanctions, so that the Iranians can start selling oil and petrochemicals again and related products. So that's kind of important. But the $300 billion is a new amount, quite hypothetical, to be put into the Iranian economy if the Iranians perform,
right?
And which will help to revitalize the economy.
Performance pay, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the theory. What the memo says, that the United States and its allies will facilitate $300 billion. Well, I mean, Trump has made it pretty clear today, well, we're not paying it.
Yeah.
And the allies, of course, is the Gulf. And the idea that the Gulf, who have suffered grievously by this war that they advised the Americans not to undertake, and that the Gulf allies will put $300 billion into building up a state which is now avowedly their enemy, is
striking them, yeah. I mean, I've got the wording of the MOU here. The United States undertakes, together with regional partners, to create a comprehensive plan upon by both parties for the rehabilitation and economic development of Iran, ensuring financing of at least $300 billion. The implementation of this plan, as part of the final agreement, will be formulated within 60 days. So it's not just the US, regional partners. They get the Gulf nations to start, UAE start chipping into
to
that.
Facilitate. They say, well, and then the latest thinking from, I think, early this morning in the FT that I saw was that some American government figures or spokespeople and anonymous are saying, well, it's not necessarily government money anyway.
Right.
We'll try and attract private investment.
Okay.
Well, good luck with that. If you think that private investment is going to start putting big money into Iran, which is now run by a military junta, which is going to be involved in a civil war with its own people in the next 1, 2, 3 years, if you think that's a good prospect for big investment, help yourself.
It's that Gaza Riviera.
Absolutely. Precisely that. Help yourself. I mean, it's a ridiculous idea, and it's just unrealistic.
But that 300 billion, as you say, it feels unrealistic. That amount's not going to be the breaker of this deal, would it? I mean, with the Iranians
no, because it's all backloaded.
Right.
So within 60 days they'll come up with a plan to have it.
Yeah.
Well, good. Let's see the plan.
Mr. Dollar's got a question here. We kind of touched on it, but maybe a touch more about Iran getting money for ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, they were getting millions and millions per ship initially, when they were at least charge it.
They were, yeah. They were getting. can't remember the figure now. It came to something like $1 million a trip, I think it was, and that they were first demanding, and then it was sort of went down, and they dynamically priced it according to who they were talking to, and of course they didn't exact any cost on ships going to China, so they're talking about it, but they did try to make some money out of it, and there is this idea. It's not in the MOU, but the idea kicking around that for 60 days there'll be no charges, but after 60 days. That Iran and Oman, who are the other side of the Gulf, will exact these maritime service charges. Yep. And that would be, as I say, disaster for the principles of free trade and for what happens in some of the other Straits of Malacca, the Taiwan Straits. And,
Bab el-Mandeb.
Exactly, Bab el-Mandeb. So all of these straits will not be as freely available if the Strait of Hormuz becomes some sort of pay system. It's a really, really bad idea, and the Iranians have got to be dissuaded from this, or people have just got to go through and not pay and dare them to do something about it. We'll see how that goes.
Brinkmanship, I don't like the sounds of that.
Yeah.
A question here from Glenn. What guarantees have been secured to keep the Strait of Hormuz open and toll-free? We haven't got those yet. And also about Iran's nuclear enrichment, what guarantees have been secured for that so far? I mean, it just feels like that's an afterthought.
That's right, yeah.
It's the first line. They won't get a nuclear weapon, but what are we going to do with these 400 kilos of fuel?
It's part of in the MOU, Iran's nuclear future and the enriched uranium which already exists are all in one sentence, that they will be subject to discussion pending a final agreement. So we go back to where we were before the end of February. It's all up for negotiation. That's why this takes us, nowhere. Makes the war pointless. We just go back to where we were, and the whole thing is still to be discussed. And this is why this is so favourable to Iran, because this plays to their strong suit. Endless negotiations. They're really good at this, and they'll spin it out and spin it out and spin it out.
So, Michael, look into your crystal ball then. What do you think is going to happen in the next few days? I mean, do you imagine there will be this signing ceremony taking place on Friday, and we'll start this process of 60 days? I mean, Trump loves his deadlines. What is 60 days?
2 months, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be August sometime by the time we get
a
decision on
that.
It
will be mid-August. And that's one of the things that, the Americans are in a weak position now, and their position will continue to weaken because in 60 days, in 2 months, they'll be 2 months nearer the November midterm elections. So the idea of going back to war at the end of 60 days will be even less attractive than it is now. And it's pretty unattractive now for all sorts of reasons. So America's position will weaken. So what I think will happen, yes, there'll be a ceremony. There'll be a signing. It'll be, praised to the skies by President Trump. He'll call it peace in our time. The rest of the world won't believe it. Some of the American public will go along with it, and some will feel very uncomfortable. And he will then try and distract attention, which is why he might get back onto Ukraine. Ukraine ceasefire, which might turn out to be a blessing in disguise, we'll see. But he'll try and distract attention from it, say, next week, when people start scratching their heads and say, what was the war about, Mr. President? But then it will be a messy process. I think there'll be lots of breaches. There'll be lots of issues. And as I said, I think the Strait of Hormuz will open and close and open and close as a pressure point that the Iranians will use against what happens in Lebanon and maybe against what the Americans do. And there'll be a temptation for people in America to say, well, go back into the Gulf. I mean, one of the things that's in that MOU, I think it's point number one, is that there shall be a ceasefire that will extend to Lebanon. Oh, no, it's not. It's about point 3. And the United States will withdraw forces from the immediate region. Is that around about point 3?
I'm just kind of a quick read as you keep.
It's a sort of it's a little rider at the end of a sentence. Is it point 3?
Maybe I haven't got it quite yet.
Okay, but anyway, the Iranians may say, well, you haven't withdrawn forces. You've still got a carrier battle group hanging around.
And can they? I mean, and what does withdraw forces mean? Because they're not going to take them away.
It doesn't specify.
Yeah. You're right, exactly.
What is it?
It is. I think it's about 0.4 actually. It doesn't have numbers in front of me, but it does say. Immediately upon signing the memorandum of understanding, the blockades will be lifted, traffic will be restored, and then that sentence, the US also undertakes to withdraw its forces from the surrounding areas within 30 days after the final agreement. So, final agreement, what is that, in the 60 days after?
So, 60 days, 90 days, then we have a final agreement, and then within 30 days, the Americans withdraw their forces.
But the surrounding area includes Qatar, where they have...
Presumably.
thousands and thousands of troops. And Kuwait and Bahrain.
Al Udeid, and then Bahrain, the 5th Fleet is in Bahrain at Al Jafar.
Are they going to go from there?
No. I mean, again, it's silly. in the sense of it's all a series of big big statements, which you only got to poke them a little bit to see that there's almost nothing behind them. So everything is put into kicked into the long grass. Everything is kicked ahead for discussions to take place during 60 days. And that's what the Iranians are really good at. It's what the Americans are very bad at because they're impatient and Trump won't concentrate.
And they've got elections coming as well.
And you know, one other thing, I know sometimes in these sessions we think that we're banging on about Trump all the time. But one of the things that's come through this week is how little he spends time on thinking about this war, because everyone close says, look, he's obsessed by the ballroom, by his 80th birthday party, by the big, the new monument, the new reflecting pool, all the beautification of Washington that he says he's doing. He's obsessed with all of these narcissistic projects, and they can't get him to concentrate on the war for more than very short periods, which is why, given how top-heavy everything American decision-making is, everything goes to the White House, goes to the boss. And that would be all right if, A, the boss concentrate, and B, if the boss didn't fall asleep as often as he does.
And there's no better place than that to end it for this week, Michael Clarke. Professor Clarke, appreciate you as always. Appreciate you guys being with us as well. I think our schedules are aligned to do another one of these next week, around about Wednesday. So thank you for being with us this afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your afternoons, and we will see you again next week.